Hey everyone, I'm Ryan Douglas, the teaching pastor here at the 456, and we are so glad that you're joining us this week for the community gathering video. We have just finished up our fourth sermon from the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew 6, 7, and 8. Oh, try again, 5, 6, and 7. Some of you have already come and talked to me and said that it's been encouraging to you. Some have told me that it's a little bit challenging, that it's different than what you've heard before. Good. Let's keep talking about these things. So we hope here at the 456 that we are pressing deeper into Christ and that we are coming to know Him and enjoy Him more fully. And yes, even us pastors, we have been challenged by the Word many times and have had to have our theology kind of shaped and tweaked as we have come nearer, we believe, to the heart of who Christ is. And so we hope that you'll continue that dialogue with us and that you will continue to enjoy these conversations as we do too. So this past week, we were in Matthew 7. We started Matthew 7, which is where we'll be for the next 2 weeks as well. And really, our application, jumping to application already, our theology was, our good Father gives good things to those who ask Him. Our good Father gives good things to those who ask Him. It's ripped straight from the text. We didn't make that up. It's a cool song, but it's not made up even by the people who wrote the song, right? And so our good Father gives good gifts to those who ask Him. Now, where we would differ with probably the popular teaching of that text, anyone who asks, anyone who knocks, anyone who seeks, ask and you will receive, seek and you will find, knock and the door will be open to you. A lot of people will use those things in a context of, blessing, an earthly blessing, a new job, maybe having the baby that you've been praying for years, your marriage to be restored or to get married, period, maybe a raise. So some people think about it from kind of earthly reward kind of thing, and some of it think about it in terms of relationships or whatever. But really what we saw Sunday, if you'll remember from the parallel text in Luke, is that the context here is salvation. It's righteousness. That those who ask, seek, and knock receive the Spirit. That's what the Bible tells us in Luke, that the good Father knows how to give the Spirit to those who ask Him. And we know from Romans chapter 8 that the Spirit is given to those who belong to Christ. And if you don't have the Spirit, you don't belong to Christ. We know from Ephesians 1:13 that the Spirit seals those of us who have put faith in Jesus and seals us into the person and the body of Jesus Christ. And so that we are part of the family of God. We'll also know from later in Romans chapter 8 that the Spirit of God is the one who testifies to our spirit and reminds us that we belong to God. And we know from John chapters 13 and 16 that the Spirit guides us into all truth and reminds us of the things of Christ. And so this is absolutely righteousness and salvation and life in the Spirit. These are the best things that somebody can be given. And what's interesting is that what Jesus is doing is, you'll remember from Matthew 5:20, He's already said to this crowd that's gathered around Him, unless your righteousness is more than the righteousness of the scribes and the Pharisees, you'll never see the kingdom of heaven. And the scribes and the Pharisees believed, they knew, if you will, that they were righteous. And the problem was that the righteousness that the scribes and the Pharisees said that they had wasn't one that was accessible to anybody else. It wasn't just that they believed that the crowds couldn't be as righteous as they were. They didn't believe the crowds could be righteous at all. They were judgmental, they were racist, they were prejudicial, and that's why Matthew 7 starts where it does, remember? So it says that you need to remove the log from your own eye before you can remove the speck from your brother's eye. The brother here is not Christian, okay? That's not Christian, it's Jewish brother. Jesus is talking to Jews at this point, right? And remember the language. Remember how similar the language is to the woe of the scribes and the Pharisees in Matthew 23 or Luke 11, where Jesus says, "Woe to you scribes, you Pharisees, you hypocrites, you strain out a gnat and swallow the camel." You hypocrites, He goes, you don't remove the plank from your own eye, but you seek to remove a speck from your brother's eye. And there were a lot of reasons the Pharisees did not like these other people, these other Jews. And it was a racism against their own people for different reasons. They weren't good Jews, the Pharisees didn't think. And so the Pharisees did not believe that righteousness was for them. So Jesus has said to this crowd of people back in Matthew 5, it's those who are poor in spirit, who are destitute in spirit, who are meek and gentle, who weep over their sin, who hunger and thirst for righteousness, who come to salvation. And the scribes and the Pharisees have no righteousness. And He spends the rest of chapter 5 and chapter 6 showing how the behavior of the scribes and the Pharisees is not righteous. And then here He says in chapter 7 that salvation is for anyone. Righteousness is for anyone, and it's even for you. All you have to do is ask, seek, or knock, and it's yours, right? Ask the Father, ask the good Father, and he will give you the good gift of life and righteousness. And this is really, really great news. If you're watching by chance and you have never put your faith in Jesus, and the hang up for you, the thing that's keeping you from doing that is you don't believe you're good enough, you don't believe that God would love you in the state that you're in, you think of all the sins you've committed, you think of all the wrongs you've done, and you're like, God would never want me, I could never come to the Father. You need to be reminded right now, you need to be reminded that salvation is for anyone who asks. That all who ask, all who call upon the name of the Lord will be saved. And that's from Romans, but Romans is Paul, and Romans is quoting Joel the prophet, that those who call upon the Lord will be saved. And it's for everyone. It is for all who believe, right? And so this is really good news, not just for us, but at this time in Matthew 7, for these Jews who are listening to him. And so Jesus is talking about that. He's going to say to them that the common way of doing things, the way that has been the way that people have done things, will lead to destruction. We'll talk about that next week from Matthew 7, 13 and 14. And that this narrow way will lead to life. Our application this past week was this: trust that all of our provision for life and holiness is gifted to us by God. Trust that all of our provision for life and holiness is gifted to us by God. Listen, the Bible tells us in Peter, it says, and I always forget, it's 2 Peter 1, I think, 3, or it's 1 Peter 2, 3. I don't know. It's a 3 and a 2 and a 1, right? So it can't be 3 Peter because there's not one of those. So I'm going to go with 2 Peter 1, 3. But that God has given us everything we need for life and for godliness. And through his precious and magnificent promises that we can become partakers of the divine nature. We have everything we need for life and for godliness. We have everything we need. Why? Because it has been graciously supplied to us by a good God in heaven. Not based on our merit, not based on our abilities, not based on how many people we led to the Lord this past week, but based on the goodness of a Father. And all we have to do is believe him, trust him, come to him in faith, and ask him for these things, and he gifts them to us because that's the kind of God that he is. Our prayer this past week was this: God, may we find our comfort in your gracious gift of life through Christ. God, may we find our comfort through your gracious gift, or comfort in your gracious gift through Christ. This is something that I personally am working on right now. I spend, and you've heard me talk about this before, but I spend way too many nights awake at 2 or 3 in the morning, worried or in fear or anxious. And what it boils down to is that I am thinking too much, too highly on the circumstances and the conditions of this life, and not highly enough on the life that I have in Jesus. As I focus on that more, that's going to quiet my spirit and calm me and give me comfort. And that's our prayer. God, give us comfort. Help us to find our comfort. Help me to find comfort in your gracious gift of life through Christ. Here's some questions I want you to ponder this week. 1, what's the best gift you ever received as a kid? The very best gift you ever received as a kid. I remember getting my first bike at Christmas. I remember getting a fishing pole. My parents did a scavenger hunt for me, like on my 16th birthday. I remember getting a fishing pole for my 16th birthday that I still have. I've changed out the reels a few times, but for 30 years I've had this pole and I still fish with it. Question 1, what was the best gift you ever received as a kid? Question 2, what gift would you love to be surprised with today? What is that thing? Like, I mean, and go ahead, be ridiculous. You know, if it's a Lamborghini, say a Lamborghini. But like, what's the gift today that would really surprise you, that would be a real blessing or an encouragement to you today? Something that you would really enjoy. For Pierce, it would be something probably related to Jurassic Park. Like, he wants one of the original vehicles from Jurassic Park, not just a toy. He wants the real thing or something. Find that for him, give it to him today. His birthday's coming up in a few weeks. You can surprise him for his birthday. Question 3. Why do people tend to make Matthew 7 through 8, ask, seek, and knock? Why do they tend to make Matthew 7 and 8 about material blessing rather than eternal blessing? Question 3, why do we tend to make those 2 verses about material blessing rather than eternal blessing? Obviously, eternal blessing is the highest one. It's the reward. It's our hope. It's our joy. It's our confidence. So why do we tend to make the text smaller than that? Is it ignorance on our part? Is it selfishness? Is it just we had poor teachers, poor preachers? Why is it? Why do you think that people tend to make those two verses about material blessing rather than spiritual blessing? Think on those. I look forward to seeing you Sunday. I hope that you're having a fantastic week, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.